Admiral Xenthra's crystalline appendages trembled as she approached the towering gates of the High Council chamber. The ancient marble halls of New Concordat still bore the scars of 1,000 years of galactic governance, each crack and imperfection telling its own story of power, ambition, and folly. Today, she would add another tale to these hallowed walls, perhaps the most important warning in the Concordat's history. The chamber doors parted with a resonant hum, revealing the amphitheater where the 12 High Counselors perched on their elevated platforms. Their bioluminescent markings pulsed with barely contained irritation. Xenthra had interrupted their annual resource allocation summit, a grave breach of protocol that could end her career. But after what she had witnessed at the Perseus mining colony, protocol meant nothing. "Honorable Council," she began, her translator working overtime to convey the urgency in her harmonics. "I come before you with dire news about species designation Tex 1138, known locally as humans." High Counselor Venrex's upper appendages twisted in annoyance. "Admiral Xenthra, your fascination with this primitive species has become concerning. They are barely capable of controlled fusion reactions. What possible threat could they pose to the Concordat?" Xenthra activated her neural implant, projecting a holographic recording above the chamber's central dais. The image showed a small human mining vessel, dwarfed by a Concordat patrol cruiser. 3 solar cycles ago, this patrol ship attempted to assert mining rights in the Perseus sector. Standard procedure, performed countless times across our territories. The recording continued, showing the human vessel's apparent surrender. Then, without warning, the tiny ship executed a maneuver that should have torn it apart. It dove straight into the cruiser's gravitic wake, using the patrol ship's own drive field to slingshot itself into a perfect attack position. What followed left the council chamber in stunned silence. The humans had modified their mining lasers, Xenthra explained, her voice heavy with memory. They turned industrial tools into weapons that could pierce our most advanced shields. But it wasn't just the technology. It was their willingness to risk everything, to fly maneuvers that by all our calculations should have been suicide. "One lucky engagement proves nothing," Counselor Zixtal dismissed, though his color patterns betrayed his unease. "This was not luck," Xenthra insisted. "I've spent the last 3 cycles studying every recorded interaction with humans. They possess something we've never encountered in any other species, an ability to turn their greatest disadvantages into advantages. They don't think like us. Where we see immutable laws of physics and established tactical doctrines, they see possibilities." She moved to the center of the chamber, her crystalline form catching the light. "We believe ourselves superior because our civilization has achieved perfect order, because our technology follows the elegant path of logical progression. But the humans, they embrace chaos. They take our most basic assumptions about how things should work and turn them inside out." "You sound as if you admire them," Venrex observed coldly. "I fear them," Xenthra corrected. "And you should too. That patrol ship had every advantage: superior weapons, advanced shields, a crew with centuries of combined experience. The humans had a converted mining vessel and what our analysts dismissed as primitive technology. But they also had something we couldn't quantify: desperation, creativity, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat." She played another recording, this one showing the aftermath of the engagement. The patrol ship's crew had been left alive, their escape pods carefully collected and returned to the nearest Concordat outpost. Attached was a simple message: "We don't want war, but we will defend what's ours." "They spared the crew," Counselor Mixera noted, speaking for the first time. "Why?" "Because they were sending us a message," Xenthra replied. "They wanted us to know that they chose mercy, that they could have killed everyone aboard but didn't. It wasn't just a military victory. It was psychological warfare." The council chamber erupted in overlapping harmonics as the members debated among themselves. Xenthra waited patiently, knowing that everything hinged on what came next. Finally, Venrex raised his primary appendage for silence. "What would you have us do?" Admiral. Abandon our rightful claim to the Perseus sector because of one minor skirmish. I would have us learn from this encounter, Xanthra answered carefully. The humans are not like the other species we've absorbed into the Concordat. They cannot be intimidated by our power or impressed by our technology. They've survived centuries of their own wars, splitting the atom before they achieved unified planetary government. They turned their harsh, gravity-heavy world into an advantage, building bodies and machines that can endure stresses that would tear our ships apart. She paused, letting her next words carry the full weight of their importance. If we proceed with the planned annexation of their territories, we will not be facing a primitive species struggling to comprehend our superiority. We will be facing an enemy that has spent its entire history learning to overcome supposedly superior forces, and they will not stop fighting until either they are completely destroyed, or we are. The silence that followed was deafening. Xanthra could see the council members' color patterns shifting as they processed her warning. But she could also see the pride and arrogance that had built the Concordat still holding firm in their postures. Your warning is noted, Admiral, Venrex finally declared, but the expansion proceeds as planned. The humans will learn, as all species do, that resistance to the Concordat is futile. You are dismissed. Xanthra bowed formally, hiding the despair in her color patterns. As she left the chamber, she sent an encrypted message to her most trusted commanders. Prepare contingency plan, Oracle. The darkness comes. The great doors sealed behind her with a sound like thunder, and Admiral Xanthra knew with crushing certainty that she had just witnessed the beginning of the end of the Concordat as she knew it. The humans would make sure of that. In her quarters that night, she added one final entry to her personal log. They cannot say they weren't warned. The Concordat battle fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls reflecting the light of Earth's sun. Fleet Commander Rixtel stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion, admiring how the 1,000 ships under his command moved with mathematical precision. This, he thought, was true power, not the crude resourcefulness that Admiral Xanthra had praised in her warnings. All ships report ready, Commander, his executive officer announced. The humans appear to have detected our arrival. Their defensive fleet is moving oddly. Rixtel studied the tactical display with mild curiosity. The human ships were indeed behaving strangely, breaking formation and scattering in seemingly random patterns. Their vessels were ugly things, all sharp angles and exposed weapon systems, lacking the elegant crystalline architecture of Concordat design. They flee already. How disappointing, he mused. Send the standard surrender demand. Remind them of the futility of resistance. The message was transmitted, encoded in every known human language. The response came moments later. A simple audio transmission on an open channel. A rough, human voice spoke words that would soon become legendary. We didn't scatter because we're afraid. We scattered because our ships work better alone. You brought a fleet to a knife fight. Let's see how that works out for you. Before Rixtel could process the peculiar message, proximity alarms screamed across his bridge. Hundreds of small objects were appearing from behind Earth's moon, accelerating at speeds that should have been impossible for their size. Analysis, Rixtel demanded. They appear to be civilian mining drones, sir. Repurposed for. The sensor officer never finished his sentence. The first drone slammed into a Concordat cruiser at relativistic speed. The crystalline vessel shattered like glass, its elegant design proving catastrophically vulnerable to such crude kinetic attacks. More drones followed, each targeting a different ship. The perfect formation of the Concordat fleet became its weakness. Each destroyed vessel showered its neighbors with lethal fragments. Impossible, Rixtel whispered. They're sacrificing their mining infrastructure just to multiple contacts. His tactical officer shouted. The human fleet is engaging. The scattered human vessels had used the chaos of the drone attacks to maneuver into position. They struck from multiple angles, their crude but effective weapons targeting the exact points where the Concordat ship's crystalline structures were most vulnerable. Worse, each human ship fought independently, making it impossible to predict their movements or coordinate an effective defense. How do they know? Rixtel demanded as another cruiser exploded. Those are classified structural weaknesses. A junior communications officer spoke up, her color patterns showing extreme distress. Sir, we're detecting massive data intrusions across all frequencies. They're using our own command network against us. Rixtel's horror grew as he realized the truth. The humans hadn't just been preparing for a fight. They'd been studying the Concordat for years, probably since their first encounters. Every piece of data they'd gathered, every scan they'd taken of Concordat ships, had been analyzed and weaponized. Sir, the tactical officer's voice cracked with panic. The human ships are transmitting some kind of signal. Our crystalline matrices are beginning to resonate at. The deck beneath Rixtel's feet began to vibrate. He watched in disbelief as hairline fractures appeared in the bridge's crystalline walls. The humans had discovered the resonant frequency of the Concordat's biocrystal technology. They were literally shaking the fleet apart with sound waves. All ships, emergency withdrawal, he ordered. Retreat to safe jump distance. But the human fleet had positioned themselves perfectly, herding the dying Concordat ships into a carefully planned killing zone. As Rixtel watched his magnificent fleet crumble, he remembered Admiral Senthra's warning about human creativity. They hadn't just developed countermeasures. They'd turned the Concordat's greatest strengths into weaknesses. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as its crystal matrix approached critical resonance. In his final moments, Rixtel accessed the ship's log, determined to leave a warning for those who would follow. They were ready for us. Every advantage we thought we had, they turned it against us. This wasn't a battle. It was a trap generations in the making. The humans didn't just want to defeat us. They wanted to teach us fear. The flagship's crystal structure finally shattered, but not before Rixtel's message was transmitted to Concordat High Command. Of the 1,000 ships that had arrived in Earth's solar system, less than 100 managed to escape. Each carried with them the terrifying knowledge that everything they thought they knew about warfare had been upended by a species they dismissed as primitive. Back on Earth, in a hardened command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen watched the tactical display as the remaining Concordat ships fled. She felt no triumph, no satisfaction, only a deep weariness. "Send the message," she ordered. Throughout the debris field that had once been the Concordat battle fleet, automated beacons activated, broadcasting on all frequencies. "We warned you once. This is your second warning. There will not be a third. The stars are big enough for all of us. Remember that next time you think about invasion." In her private quarters that night, Chen recorded her own log entry. They thought their technology made them invincible. They never understood that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our ships or our guns. It's our memory of being the underdog. We remember every trick, every desperate strategy we ever used against each other. Now we have a whole galaxy of new things to learn. And God help anyone who forces us to use that knowledge. The battle would become known as the Crystal Graveyard, a decisive moment when the galaxy learned that humanity's apparent technological inferiority masked a far more dangerous truth. Give humans a problem, and they will find a way to solve it, usually in the most unexpected way possible. 3 months after the Crystal Graveyard disaster, High Counselor Ven Rex found himself unable to sleep. The bioluminescent patterns across his crystalline form pulsed with anxiety as he reviewed the latest reports. The Concordat's expansion had not just been halted. It was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. The door to his private chamber chimed. "Enter," he commanded, already knowing who it would be. Admiral Xanthra stepped inside, her form noticeably weathered since her last appearance before the Council. She had been reassigned to Frontier Defense after her warnings went unheeded, a position that had unexpectedly placed her on the front lines of humanity's expanding influence. "You were right," Ven Rex admitted before she could speak. "But even you couldn't have predicted. This. Xanthra's color patterns shifted to a complex pattern of concern and grim satisfaction. What troubles you most, counselor? The loss of our ships. Our territory. Our certainty, Venrex replied. They're not fighting like savages anymore. They're not fighting like anything we've ever seen. He gestured to the holographic display, showing the latest battlefield reports. Across dozens of star systems, human forces were executing what appeared to be contradictory strategies. In some sectors, they engaged in lightning-fast raids that disappeared before the Concordat could respond. In others, they set up elaborate defensive positions that drew Concordat forces into costly, protracted battles. Look at this, Venrex continued, highlighting a particular engagement. The humans allowed us to capture one of their frontier bases when our forces began accessing their computer systems. The data was infected, Xanthra finished. A virus that spread through our crystalline matrices, teaching our own ships to sing themselves apart. How did they know? Venrex demanded. How did they know our biocrystal technology could be reprogrammed through harmonic resonance? We've kept that secret for millennia. They didn't know, Xanthra explained. They tried everything they could think of until something worked. That's what makes them so dangerous. They don't proceed from known principles. They experiment, adapt, evolve. A new alert flashed across the display. Another Concordat fleet had gone silent, this time in the Carina sector. The humans had somehow learned to mask entire star systems from the Concordat's sensor networks. Ships would jump in expecting to find vulnerable colonies, only to disappear without a trace. The other council members are demanding action, Venrex said. They want to deploy the world breakers. Xanthra's color patterns flashed with alarm. The planet-killing weapons, that would unite every neutral species against us. We'd lose all legitimacy as a governing force. We're losing it already. The humans, they're not just fighting us. They're talking to our tributary species, sharing technology, encouraging rebellion. Venrex's patterns showed deep distress. Did you know they've even begun accepting refugees? Species that we considered too primitive for full Concordat membership are being offered sanctuary on human worlds. They're building a coalition. Xanthra realized, not through force or technological superiority, but through something we never considered, choice. They're offering species the freedom to determine their own path. The chamber's lighting flickered, another power reduction as the Concordat's resource networks trained under the Ward effort. The humans had somehow learned to disrupt the quantum entanglement links that carried energy between Concordat worlds. Each system was now forced to be self-sufficient, fracturing the perfect unity that had been the Empire's greatest strength. There's something else, Venrex said quietly. Something we haven't told the public. The humans, they're learning to replicate our technology. Not just use it, improve it. They're taking our biocrystal designs and combining them with their own crude but effective methods. He showed her another report, images of hybrid ships that combined Concordat crystalline structures with human engineering. They were ugly, inelegant things that violated every principle of Concordat design philosophy. But they worked. They more than worked. They were beating the Concordat's best ships in every engagement. We thought our technology was the peak of possible achievement, Xanthra mused. We never considered that there might be value in imperfection, in combining different approaches to create something new. A message chimed. Another council session was being called to discuss the deteriorating situation. Before leaving, Venrex turned to Xanthra with an expression she had never seen in a high counselor. Fear. How do we stop them? He asked. How do we fight an enemy that turns every defeat into a lesson, every captured technology into a new weapon? We don't, Xanthra replied simply. We do what we should have done from the start. We talk to them. As equals, before they finish teaching us just how unequal we really are. As if to punctuate her words, the chamber's lights flickered again. Somewhere in the vast expanse of space, humanity was continuing its relentless evolution, learning and adapting with each encounter. The Concordat had spent millennia perfecting its civilization. The humans, in contrast, had never stopped changing, never stopped seeking new ways to overcome their limitations. And now, faced with the greatest challenge in their history, they were doing what they had always done, turning adversity into advantage, using their enemy's strength against them, and refusing to accept the impossible as anything more than a temporary inconvenience. The war wasn't just changing the galaxy, it was changing what everyone thought was possible. And in the end, that might be humanity's greatest victory of all. Captain Maya Rodriguez sat in her command chair aboard the UES Deception, watching the holographic display as hundreds of Concordat refugees streamed into the ship's vast hangar base. The crystalline aliens' color patterns flickered with fear and uncertainty as human crews guided them to temporary quarters. None of them seemed to know quite what to make of their situation, or their unexpected salvation. "Status report," Maya commanded, her dark eyes never leaving the display. Her XO, Commander David Chen, consulted his tablet. "We've recovered approximately 800 survivors from the Nexus 7 outpost, mostly civilian administrators and their families. The Concordat military forces," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "chose not to survive capture." Maya nodded grimly. The Concordat's warrior caste had been thoroughly indoctrinated with the idea that death was preferable to surrender. It had taken months of careful planning to prove otherwise to the civilian population. "How many of them have figured it out yet?" she asked. "That we deliberately let them detect our attack plans." Chen smiled slightly. "A few of the sharper ones are starting to ask questions. The evacuation was almost too smooth, wasn't it?" Indeed it had been. For 3 months, human intelligence services had been deliberately leaking information about planned attacks on Concordat civilian installations. The Nexus 7 outpost had been evacuated weeks ago, except for a small contingent of civilians who had been quietly convinced to stay behind and wait. "Send the signal," Maya ordered. "Let's show our guests what they escaped from." The main view screen activated, showing the Nexus 7 outpost in the distance. Right on schedule, a Concordat battle fleet emerged from hyperspace, weapons charged and ready to defend against the human attack their intelligence had warned them about. Instead, they found an almost empty outpost, its few remaining residents already evacuated by the very enemies they had come to fight. And as their sensors swept the system, they detected something else. Hundreds of quantum-entangled bombs, hidden throughout the outpost's crystalline structure. "Transmit the message," Maya commanded. Chen nodded, and across all frequencies in every Concordat dialect, the words began to play. "Your civilian population has been evacuated to safety. They will be treated with respect and care, as befits sentient beings. This facility will self-destruct in 5 minutes. You may attempt to disarm the devices, but be warned that your own quantum entanglement technology has been turned against you. Every attempt to disable one bomb will trigger 2 more. We suggest you retreat to a safe distance." The Concordat fleet hung motionless for long moments. Maya could almost imagine the chaos on their command decks as they tried to process this complete violation of everything they thought they knew about warfare. The humans hadn't just outmaneuvered them. They had protected the very civilians the Concordat had been willing to sacrifice. 4 minutes, the automated warning continued. "Your people are safe. They will be given the choice to return home or seek asylum among the growing coalition of free worlds. The choice will be theirs, not yours, not ours. Isn't choice what truly separates civilization from empire?" In the hangar bay below, the refugees watched the same scene unfold. They saw their mighty fleet, the symbol of Concordat power, forced to retreat from their own outpost. But more importantly, they saw their families safe, their children protected by the very enemy they had been taught to fear. 3 minutes. "We know why your warriors choose death over surrender. They fear what we will learn from them. But they don't realize, we already know your weaknesses. We learned them not through interrogation or torture, but through mercy. Every civilian we save teaches us more about your society than any military intelligence ever could. Maya watched as the Concordat fleet finally began to withdraw. Right on cue, her communications officer reported incoming transmissions from dozens of other Concordat civilian installations. Word was spreading faster than even they had anticipated. The myth of Concordat invincibility wasn't being destroyed by military defeat. It was being undone by simple human decency. 2 minutes. Your empire is built on the belief that unity comes through strength. We are showing your people another way. Strong cultures don't fear choice. They embrace it. In her private thoughts, Maya reflected on the elegance of the strategy. Every civilian saved became a voice for peace. Every act of mercy undermined the Concordat's propaganda about human savagery. And with each evacuation, more of the Concordat's supposedly loyal subjects began to question everything they had been taught. 1 minute. This is not just destruction. It is transformation. Your people are learning that there are alternatives to blind obedience. They are learning that strength can be found in cooperation as well as command. The Concordat fleet made its final jump to safety just as the quantum-entangled bombs began their cascade. The outpost's crystalline structure shattered in a spectacular display of light and energy. But no lives were lost. Another bloodless victory in a war that was increasingly being won not through superior firepower, but through superior understanding of what truly motivated people. Detonation complete, Chen reported. No casualties. Concordat fleet has withdrawn to safe distance. Maya nodded, finally allowing herself a small smile. Send the final message. Throughout the ship, in every refugee quarter, the words echoed. Welcome to the first day of your new lives. You have seen how the Concordat values you. You have seen how we value you. The choice of what happens next is yours. That's what we've been fighting for all along. Not victory, but choice. As the message faded, Maya could hear the sounds of discussion spreading through the refugee quarters. The Concordat's perfect unity was cracking not from the outside, but from within. And the weapon that was destroying it wasn't human technology or military might. It was the simple, revolutionary idea that people should be free to choose their own path. Set course for coalition space, she ordered. Let's show our guests what freedom really looks like. The great hall of the coalition embassy on New Terra hummed with tension. Admiral Xanthra stood before the massive windows, her crystalline form reflecting the golden light of Earth's sunset. Behind her, arranged in a perfect semicircle, sat the remaining members of the Concordat High Council. Before them, representing humanity, stood Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen and Captain Maya Rodriguez. You have dismantled our empire, High Counselor Venrex stated, his color patterns shifting between anger and resignation. Not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through, he struggled to find the right words. Understanding. Admiral Chen finished for him. We didn't just study your weapons or your tactics. We studied you, your society, your people. And we found something you had forgotten long ago. Xanthra turned from the window, her patterns showing quiet satisfaction. She had warned them, all those months ago. Now they were finally ready to listen. Your greatest weakness wasn't your crystalline technology, your rigid command structure, or even your pride. Maya added, stepping forward. It was your belief that unity could only come through force. That civilization meant conformity. The holographic displays around the room activated, showing scenes from across the galaxy. Former Concordat worlds where humans and aliens now work together, combining technologies and ideas in ways the Council had always forbidden. Hybrid ships that merged crystalline precision with human adaptability. Schools where children of different species learned from each other's histories and cultures. Look at what we've built, Chen said softly. Not conquered, not subjugated, but built together. Your civilians didn't flee to us because they feared you. They came because we offered them something the Concordat never could. The freedom to choose their own path. Venrex's patterns showed confusion, but the chaos, the disorder of individual choice, is exactly what makes us strong. Maya interrupted. You saw our scattered fleets and fought us disorganized. You saw our different approaches to technology and fought us primitive. You saw our alliances with lesser species and fought us weak. But diversity isn't chaos. It's adaptation. Every different perspective is another way to solve a problem. Every unique approach is another tool in our arsenal. Zenthra moved to the center of the room, her voice carrying the weight of vindication. I tried to tell you, humans don't just overcome challenges, they transform them into advantages. They took everything we thought made us superior and turned it into a lesson about our own limitations. The displays shifted again, showing the aftermath of the Crystal Graveyard battle, the evacuation of Nexus 7, the growing coalition of free worlds, each image a testament to humanity's unique approach to conflict and resolution. We could have destroyed you, Chen stated matter-of-factly. After we learned to shatter your ships, to disrupt your power networks, to turn your own technology against you, we could have ended the Concordat forever. Why didn't you? Another council member asked, genuine curiosity in their patterns. Maya smiled. Because destruction isn't our goal. Never was. We fought you because we had to, but we always left room for something beyond victory, something better than mere survival. Understanding. Zenthra repeated Chen's earlier word. The humans never saw us as simply enemies to be defeated. They saw us as potential allies who had lost their way. The sun had almost set now, casting the room in deep golden hues that made the crystalline forms of the Concordat representatives shimmer like living flames. In that light, the differences between human and alien seemed to fade, leaving only the shared potential of sentient minds working together. So, Chen said, placing a data crystal on the table between them, these are our terms for peace, but they're not demands or ultimatums. They're proposals, the beginning of a dialogue. Venrex reached for the crystal, his patterns showing trepidation. And if we refuse, then you refuse, Maya answered simply. You'll remain isolated, watching as more of your worlds choose to join the coalition, not because we forced them, but because we offered them a choice. And what guarantee do we have? Another council member demanded. What assurance that this isn't simply a more subtle form of conquest? Chen's response was interrupted by a new arrival. A young Concordat civilian entered, accompanied by her human escort. Her pattern showed none of the fear or subservience the council was accustomed to seeing. Instead, she radiated confidence and purpose. Honorable Council, she began. I am Zixa, formerly of Nexus 7. I've spent the last 3 months living among humans, learning their ways, and teaching them ours. They don't want to destroy what we are. They want to help us remember what we could be. She activated her own holographic display, showing a school she had established where Concordat children learned alongside humans and other species. This is not the chaos you feared. This is evolution, growth, the very things our empire was founded to pursue, before we became so focused on control that we forgot about progress. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just defeated the Concordat militarily, they had shown them a better way to achieve their own original goals. The choice is yours, Chen said finally. But remember, strength isn't about having all the answers. It's about being willing to learn new questions. As the council members began their deliberations, Zenthra moved to stand beside the human officers. Her pattern showed a complex mixture of emotions that no traditional Concordat language could quite express. You know, she said quietly, when I first warned them about humans, I thought I understood what made your species dangerous. But I was wrong. Your true power isn't in your adaptability, your creativity, or even your determination. Oh. Maya raised an eyebrow. What is it then? Your capacity to see beyond victory, Zenthra replied. To understand that the strongest chains are the ones people choose to forge themselves. You didn't just defeat us. You showed us how to be better than we were. The last rays of Earth's sun faded from the chamber, but the light of understanding remained. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon hadn't been their ships or their strategies, or even their mercy. It had been their fundamental belief that every being, every civilization, deserved the chance to choose their own destiny. And in that choice lay the seeds of a transformation that would reshape not just the Concordat, but the entire galaxy. Not through force or fear, but through the most powerful force of all, the simple, revolutionary idea that unity is strongest when it comes from understanding.